Colleen, I figured it would be better to sort of answer the questions this way so you could hear, I can express the answers better. You know, I still have the mind stuff. I can focus better, but I notice when I'm talking, I do forget, the short-term memory. So, all right, so this is the interview. I'll do a few questions here. I'll send you a few videos at a time, okay? So let me see. How did was it sudden onset? Okay, let me just see what the question's here. All right. First, thank you for speaking with us, all right, and you are welcome, all right. How old were you when you became sick? Definitively, I will tell you, 26 years old. Definitively, with the crash, all right, 1990. But I did have things from when I was a little girl that took me years to figure out. And my mother also had the illness, all right. So she sort of protected me when I was sick, like she would herself, and for a reason. So I'm going to say definitively 1990, okay? And what year was that? 1990, okay? Was it sudden onset, or did you get sick over time? In August of 1990, I had a mycoplasma pneumonia. First they said it was bronchitis in the ER. I woke up, my chest was tight. Says, oh, I have a little trouble breathing. And I went to the ER and they says, oh, it's bronchitis. So I figured, oh, no big deal. 10 days of antibiotics, I'd be fine. Well, right, I was fine. Then it came back and it came back. So I figured, let me nip this in the bud. Let me go to the pulmonary doctor. One of the pulmonary doctors that came to the OR, I was an operating room nurse at the time. Let me go to the pulmonary doctor and nip this in the bud. We'll find out what this is right away. Okay, so I go to the pulmonary doctor, and the first thing he said was, Anne, it's mycoplasma. Please let me put you in the hospital, right? Please let me put you in the hospital. I said, what? I was just in the hospital, actually, earlier that year for 3 months. I had a high-risk pregnancy. It was with my twins. So I thought, I can't go in the hospital. I can't go back in the hospital. No. So for 2 months, he kept begging me. And I kept trying to ignore this thing. And he was sending me for, CAT scan. MRIs at that time still weren't covered all the time by the insurance, because they were still considered new. So he sent me to an ENT to make sure the dizziness wasn't caused by inner ear. And the CAT scan, he was also looking for tumors. And he kept saying, we have to make sure you have don't have a tumor in your lung that we can't see on the chest x-ray. So the end of October, I agreed. I went to his office. And he says, go to the ER. I says, no, have me put in through admitting. So the next day I was admitted into St. Vincent's Medical Center, actually. And when I got to the floor, I realized I was on a cancer floor. And my life flashed before my eyes. Can you imagine? I was 26 years old and thinking a cancer floor. So it was for a couple of weeks of IV antibiotics, and he did bronchoscope my lungs. There was something in there. And when I was discharged, and while I was in the hospital, we did pulmonary function tests too, that I remember. I know there were a few things, lab work. So when I went for the follow-up, he said, you won't be working full-time anymore in the hospital. I says, what do you mean? He says, well, you're going to be disabled because of the asthma. I said, why, asthma? Why disabled? And he says, well, now this is what the diagnosis, he said. He says, it's neuromyasthenia. I said, what the heck is that? I never heard of it. Now, I heard of the yuppie flu. We heard a lot about it in the 80s. There, I was working in Manhattan, so I knew about it. And I knew it was a problem. So I didn't connect the two yet, okay? I didn't connect the two until 1993, 92, 93. I just didn't believe him. You know, I went home, told my husband, this guy said, I'm not going to be working full time. And we laughed. I did have it in the back of my mind, though. And now the psychiatrist, he sent me to a psychiatrist because he said you had anxiety. And the psychiatrist said, well, it's normal to have a certain amount of bronchospasm after pneumonia. Why don't you go for a second opinion? So I go for the second opinion, and that pulmonary doctor, I wasn't active with the bronchitis and pneumonia, so everything came normal. He says, I can't tell you what you had. And the nursing director at the hospital I was working, she said, Ann, I'm going to give you an extended maternity leave. Just stay home till you recover. They thought because I came back to work right away after my twins were born, I didn't give myself a chance to recover. And I actually felt the difference between the C-section recovery and what was going on. But I was still denying in my head that it was going to be a chronic thing. So I did take a couple of more months off. Actually, I was off 5 more months. And we set it up where I'd work 2 days a week. And I worked on Monday and Thursday. And to rest, I had to rest in between the days. I figured, well, I'm just worn out for the twins. You know, I'm going to beat this thing. I kept calling it the thing, whatever. So